does intervene and try to disturb that happiness.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as you keep God first and foremost in your thought, I try to, but sometimes under duress and pressure, it's the last thing you think of. And then you think about it later and you say, why didn't I go to God first?
Well, even when you're going through it, it's what is really going on here, you ask yourself. And like you say, sometimes people really don't understand how powerful the devil is and how powerful he can manipulate people and events and things going on. And we're constantly under attack. But the thing is, we have an advocate, and that's Jesus Christ, and that's where prayer really comes in to help us in those situations.
When Jesus spoke here of the kingdom of God, I relate that to focusing on our salvation first and foremost. And if you keep your eye on the prize, you know, everything else that comes along, yeah, it affects you. But how much will you allow it to affect you if you keep your eye on Jesus and on your salvation? Yeah, things go bad, and just in the way we are. I mean, we give the Lord one day, and Satan reigns supreme in the other six, you know, in this secular world.
Right.
But
right.
Our focus is seeking God first and His righteousness, and ultimately the prize is the kingdom of God.
The kingdom, we do have rewards in heaven. God ordained works that we should walk into. You know, He has things He wants us to do. You know, and I always look, you know, as in Ephesians, it says, God has a desired will for you. His desire is for you to be saved. He has a circumstantial will that basically if you don't follow His will exactly, there's a whole other set of circumstances that God can give you that maybe it's not perfectly His will, but God will work through that. His determined will is that you will be saved. Desired will is when He has desires for you to walk in the light, walk in the path, walk in the way that He wants us to walk. And it's a daily thing, I think, you know, everybody knows here. And sometimes I find it's refreshing when you meet a new Christian. They're not thinking of all this other stuff. They're just so excited about being saved and having God in their life that they don't think about all these other things that are going on. But I know when I first got saved, I was 20 years old, and I started to look at things, the whole world, differently. I guess it's a biblical perspective when you do things like that. And I could just see how things were opposing and trying to kind of manipulate events and try to get me off the track. In some ways it did, you know, being 20 years old. And it was not the easiest way to go.
But Mike, when you say this week it was, you know, at all angles, you felt it was the devil coming at you from all angles. I almost feel like we give, I don't even want to say this out loud,
Too
but
much.
it's like we give him like a little bit of power when we say, oh, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this. Or should we say, I'm just not even gonna give you any time of the day or anything, I'm just gonna ignore it, because
Get behind me, say,
the people that I work with, that's not the devil, that is
Their nature.
that is nature, and
That is their nature. That's
their
their
organic being,
right.
you know, so I look at that and say, that's not the devil trying to discourage me, it's how I look at it as if it's discouraging to me.
It's the
think.
it's the perception that he works on.
Yep. So if I give him power and say, oh, the devil is just beating me down this week because of it, no, if I say, you know what, that was a teaching moment for me and God provided me with this, and you just gotta stay on the positive side of it, I think.
Yeah. I worked at Bristol Hospital. I worked in a detox unit. I had this guy that came in like the third time, and apparently he got involved in a Bible study. And he saw me there, he was a little shocked, and he says, "Oh, the devil made me do this, the devil made me drink." And I turned to him and I said, "No, your flesh made you drink." He looked like I slapped him on the face.
Wasn't Flip Wilson one?
Yeah. I mean, we don't want to, you know, you're right, we don't want to acknowledge the devil in everything, but we have to realize that he's there, he's out there, and he has snares. You know, if you read in Proverbs and also in Psalms, it talks about snares and traps, just something that can trip you up.
Yep.
You know, not as much as something that is going to destroy you. He'd like to, but he can't. But there's things that he'll use. He'll use unsaved people, and he'll even use saved people sometimes to disrupt things. In our workforce, you know, we are working in an area that doesn't know God, doesn't acknowledge God, and really, I mean, we're just, you know, really odd people to them. You know, like we've talked about numerous times. So, you know, we have to seek the will of God. Means looking for Him to reign over our lives. And to reign over our lives is to let Him, you know, in AA they have a saying, let go, let God. I say, let go, let Jesus, you know. You got to let Him do it, let Him take the reins. And just kind of leaving it where it's at, like what you say with you have some, you know, young children, adolescents in there that can be very disruptive, or, you know, they do have organic problems. And, you know, I work with a lot of psychiatric people. You know, a lot of people think that, you know, they might be demonically possessed. I've only seen it, I believe, maybe 2 or 3 times, but people can be oppressed, demonically oppressed. And even Christians can be demonically oppressed. So, I mean, there is a war. I mean, you know, we have to know God's will. We have to kind of stay, and one of our ways is the duty of discipleship. It is God's will that we listen to His Son, Matthew 17:29. What did I say?
1729, I'm short one.
17:5, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Just make up numbers.
Hey, Pastor does it, why can't I?
Correct.
Well, that's where you learn it
That
from.
test to see where we,
Don't forget, it's Matthew chapter 5.
Oh,
Chapter
my.
5.
chapter 5.
I'm just confusing you.
Okay.
I put the 3 fingers up.
Put the attitude.
5:17?
All right,
That's
17:5.
5:17.
17:5.
Matthew 17,
5.
verse 5.
Verse 5.
While he was still speaking.
Okay, well,
A bright cloud enveloped him, and a voice from the cloud said,
Yes.
"This is my son whom I love. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him." You can't listen when you're talking.
Amen.
When your mouth's open, your ears are closed.
Have you ever had it where you're talking to someone and you're thinking of something else, and then you'll say something like, "Oh, the ears have walls," you know, and people look at you like, "What? Do you know what you just said?" I go, "No," you know, because I'm thinking and I'm not listening, and I'm not even listening to myself. You know, what am I saying? And it takes some concentration really to hear the Lord talking to us. In 28:18,
Matthew,
Matthew. Then Jesus came to them and said, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me." So he's got all authority over heaven and earth. Even though, you know, the evil one has the earth. He's in the earth, but God has authority over that also. Jesus